So now we have another interesting presentation, I guess, I'm sure, and it is given by Anna Grandori from Università Bocconi in Milan. The title is Rational Heuristics for Economic Discovery. Really So you have 45 minutes.
Yeah, maybe it's too much, but perhaps we have some discussion during the presentation. Also, I would like that. Also because...
So you are legitimate to intervene during the presentation.
With rational disagreement. And also because the majority, I think, of you are philosophers. So, but also I'm happy to have here an important delegation from Rome, but in the organization. So I feel I have, my own family. So anyway, given that part of the disagreement, I don't know whether rational or not rational, stem from language. And so I would really be happy to receive questions, criticism, and clarification, because there's some kind of a problem of misunderstanding or disagreement comes from Lactosian background knowledge. So the very basic term definition, the commitment, for example, is used in behavioral science and social science with a somewhat different notion related to the one you use. So, in any case, I want to start actually the real start of this long actually line of research on heuristics and decision making actually has the roots in a disagreement. And the disagreement is actually the disagreement mentioned also before between the behavioral approach to decision making, not only behavioral economics, because behavioral economics actually was born by importing cognitive psychology into economics, and the classic and neoclassic economic view of economics. And actually, I'm not quoted here, but widely in this new book that is out on epistemic economics and organization, which we try to reconstruct, among other things, all this work that I've been doing 30 years in this field of decision making. I would say Simon started with a disagreement and with a criticism and with an opposition to the classical paradigm of the rational actor, by saying, my first statement is that there is no evidence whatsoever that any decision of some complexity can be done, can be performed as the economists assume. So there is no evidence that all this computation is possible. That was the argument. Was that a rational disagreement or not? I don't know if you have it now. So that's one of my doubts, that I have here in you. Yes and no, I would say. I would say yes, in the sense that both behavioral science and economic science are very serious stuff. They are not views or perspectives that can be disregarded, rejected, or considered ridiculous. So they are serious stuff. In that sense, it's rational. Okay? This is science, but on both sides. The demarcations are very important in this direction. But actually, in a sense, it can be considered a not so rational disagreement. So the theories are rational, the model are rational, the research is well done. It is science, but the kind of disagreement is plugged by misunderstanding and changes of level of reasoning, so that the disagreement is not that rational. So the disagreement may disappear if analyzed through lenses. And I'm going to explain that, and also because that is very much the origin of the language. So first of all, for example, economists reason in a normative perspective and in a methodological as-if perspective. So they will say, let's assume that economic actors behave as if they were rational according to the deductive, calculative, logical coherence, transitivity, etc., kind of rules. They are not saying that all humans reason in that way. They are extracting a sort of model and developing a proposition as if people behaving that way. So that's already a sort of mismatch. While behavioral scientists, and Simon first of all, started from an empirical, descriptive point of view. They say there is no evidence that people do behave in this way in most problems. Well, that's another argument. So there is no rational disagreement or rational contradiction or strict contradiction between the two statements. Even so, the two disciplines fiercely clash. So that's why I say there is something, of Kuhnian commitment toward the paradigm, but the conflict may be there or may not be there if we are honest about what we're talking about. It's an as-if normative statement, or is as is descriptive statement. Well, these are two different things. So the fact that most people make mistakes or use shortcuts does not mean that it's impossible to prescribe not to do that or to correct this. So in any case, this was a sort of, to come to the heuristics more properly. That was another surprise. I mean, Lorenzo Magnani say at the beginning that apparently there are heuristics that are not rational. I mean, the very notion of heuristic in all cognitive psychology, Kahneman, Tversky, and whatnot, and even behavioral economics, is not rational. They have no claim of being rational. Actually, the notion of rational heuristics is perceived mostly as an oxymoron, like the rational disagreement. Okay? If it is an heuristic, it means that it is not rational. That's the common understanding in social science. And the reason is that if you start with a very opening seminal article like Tversky and Kahneman, we want to show that people rely, not should rely, they do rely on heuristics that reduce complex tasks to simple jobs. And, this might be useful in general, but sometimes leads to severe systematic error. Actually, the full body of research on heuristics in economic and social sciences has been somewhat the opposite. So most of the time they lead to severe, they lead to biases, And perhaps sometimes it might be useful. Also, there's never really been clarified when under what condition which heuristics will be justified, as it remains sort of under research. So in any case, the definition of behavioral science of heuristic is a shortcut, is a substitute of rational thinking, whatever the rational thinking might be. Basically, effort setting, so we don't want to spend years analyzing very difficult problems to finding a solution, uncertainty avoiding, and based on common pattern of thought. How people commonly behave. That's the notion of heuristic that we have around the dominant notion. Okay, so given that I have an old passion in philosophy of science, and this was in my main disciplinary field, and when since the very first reading of this literature on heuristic research, which is great the research, but the term heuristics is clearly at odds with the meaning of heuristic in philosophy. That was one of my starting points, in fact. I said, oh, how strange. I read in Lacapus that heuristic is that part of the science that has an objective of discovery of fact and truth. What you were saying, extending our valid knowledge. Not a word. And even in some writing by Simon himself, the methodological writing, not the behavioral writing, he come a little bit closer to the notion of heuristic philosophy of science involved in Lacapus, etc. So, as logically sound, I mean, it's like a synonymous of a method of research, method of fight from error, right? And a logically correct method of science. Or at the very least, it may be important to distinguish what a rational heuristic, which means responding to the canon of logic and cannot be qualified as shortcuts or from a weak thought, and but the best that we can do, actually, the best pattern of thought that can be extracted from the logic of decision making or from the history of science, exactly as the heuristic of scientific research has been rationally extracted from the history of science. So that was the starting. Okay, so also with the so basically in our field there is a big hole, I mean, between the rationality intended as logically consistent, deductive, calculative, which is the classic economic notion, and the search-oriented or discovery-oriented, which, however, has a very unfirm status in terms of rationality. It's all mixed up. There are some procedures that are shortcut. Mostly they are shortcut. Mostly they are biasing. So, where are any logically sound methods of search or research for economic decisions? That's a big hole. More recently, actually, the fact that attention into knowledge-intensive economy, into innovation, into entrepreneurship, into technological innovation, actually brought some people, a lot of people, to do research on these processes, but they are not using the notion of heuristic. They are not connecting firmly with all the debated decisions there. So we have cases where practices that have been sort of discovered, in a more empirical, empiricist way in those fields. So The idea here is to reconstruct or contribute in reconstructing a repertoire of effective and rational heuristics. We have a repertoire of bad heuristics, biasing heuristics, availability, representativeness, local search, illusion of control, the lottery, in the lottery example that you made, I mean, the heuristic reasoning would be, given that I have chosen the ticket over in the ball, and let's say that I paid $1 for it, I am not willing to sell it for $1. I'm willing to sell it for $3. Why? Because I have chosen it, and this means that somehow I believe it has a higher probability of winning. This is a good story. So some of these heuristics are just mistakes. As for instance, Cannon understood in the first place. So we have a long repertoire of bias in heuristics. We don't know. It's literature on heuristic and biases. It's huge. It's outstanding research. But it's focusing only on the negative side. Okay. So I have been asked actually to provide some cases. Okay? So that's what I did. And so example of the relevance, actually example of what these rational heuristics are and how they work in economic and not strictly economic. I mean, let's say performance interested decision making. Because one of these studies is on actually the cognitive processes of pilots of aeronautical military on the day this morning to see the flight simulation. So where performance matters. So you don't want the aircraft to crash. Definitely. So we are not talking about, let's use some heuristics for fixing the problem. Maybe we don't know whether it's rational or not, and it might work or not. And let's see afterwards whether it works or not. Definitely not. Okay? Because that is what is meant by heuristic. And what is supposed to be to make sense in economics, I don't think it makes any sense, not only on flights, but also in economic policies and on firm strategy, where definitely this is sometimes, or even national interest. Okay, so this is one story. This is so let's start with the story. In the field of entrepreneurship, then we will have a project development, big project development, then we will have the pilot story, and all should contribute to identify heuristic. Okay, this is from an interview I did in Silicon Valley in 2005 when I was a sabbatical there with Roberto Crea. He's one of the founders of Genentech, and tells the story. This is in the paper and also in some of the recent publication. Okay, he was a chemist, founded by firm in over the years. Actually, he was in Tuscany, was trying to, he has an Italian origin, and of course he wanted a farm in Tuscany, very Anglo-Saxon, really and so he was studying the craftsmanship-based oil production, going back over the Greek and the Romans, and discovered a technique, went around in the factories for finding out whether some have this equipment, old-time equipment for producing high-quality oil, which, by the way, we're separating the pressing of the toast by the pressing of the seats. That was the issue. Now nobody does it any longer. He discovered in this process that the problem of the olive water, big waste, industrial waste problem. Then where to put all this water that is not all the frame of the problem is that we work hard. So what do we do with lobbying? We throw it away. And of course, the discovery started with good questions, you know, what a waste, you know, and second, the real question is, do you know what you're throwing away? Okay. Do you have analyzed ever this water? Of course, well, she's never had it. So the hypothesis was, if oil is so rich of good substances, and polyphenols in particular, maybe this water is a good substance. You can do something about it. Okay, what happened? He had the water analyzed. He found a concentration of polyphenol hundreds of times higher than in the oil. He patented a method for extracting the polyphenol from the water, started a new firm, in addition to this factory from the oil, that was for consumption, started a new firm producing tens of products, dietary, cosmetics, how we can imagine using this polyphenol. Healthcare, pharmaceutical, agriculture, food, and skill items. Okay, this is decision making. What are the heuristics in this process? That's what we can work. How we can rationally reconstruct this process. What are the heuristics driving? Is that rational? In which sense is it? It's not rational in the sense of listing objective, giving values, assessing probabilities, multiplicating, defining expected values, choosing among the alternatives, etc., etc. Okay? Yeah. It's not heuristic in the sense of behavioral economics or behavioral science, like looking close, local search, doing the thing that I've done in the past, look of action that have succeeding from comparable actor and all that stuff. So what is it? Yeah, I think this is one of the, I think it includes an array of heuristics that you know very well, you philosopher of science, because it's, as John Stuart Mill said, the logic of science is also that of business and life. So the heuristics that can be found in this process are the rational heuristics of right here, I don't know why it was astray. But let's say that they are the heuristic of research. They are similar to the heuristic of scientific research. Actually, I would say they are the same of scientific research. So the problem is not a performance gap, as it is saying in behavioral literature, something that does not work. He has no problem at all. Actually, if any, he was trying to solve another problem. So, and that was the notion of a constructionistic multi-purpose, and that's the point by Cantor. So scientists and problem solvers often trying to solve one problem and not to solve another. We all know that. Even though the counter, the Lactatus problem shifting. So these are heuristics that we know from science. So abduction and falsification, I'm not going to mention or explain anything to this audience, which is how these heuristics, rational heuristics of research are important. Observation. There is investment in research, not reducing the cost of search, which is the typical assumption of how economic actors should behave, minimizing the cost of search. And the there is a model of the effect. I mean, there are some causes, possible causes, which are the polyphenol. There is a model of what are the effects on health, on et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, so the first shift, I mentioned the behavioral heuristic, okay? Experience learning by doing tons of, the rational heuristic is model, causal model. Availability, local search, how the behavioral heuristic, systematic hypothesis, observation is rational or scientific heuristic, etc. Okay, this is the first shift. I grouped these heuristics as related to heuristic for research or for search. I mean, generating information, generating hypotheses, but there are others. And if here is more of seeing economic decision making as scientific problem solving, in the other cases you might also have a prospective decision may also go in the other direction. So there are some heuristic or rational heuristics that we might more easily see in economic decision making. We might be useful also for scientific for heuristics or enriching the repertoire of heuristic in science. Any questions after this or observation? So this was the sort of the older part of my work, actually trying to reverse. I mean, Simon himself had a piece on scientific discovery as problem solving. So he wanted to interpret the discovery part of the scientific processes as a case in human problem solving and computational complexity. So my idea has been, since the very first paper in 1984, the other way around. So to actually see human problem solving in economic or practical tasks as scientific discovery. And that's what we have this result. Okay, another heuristic, this is more recent work, involved a second shift. Well, this is, I don't know whether it's complicated, but the second thing is shifting from reasoning on action, and contingency to reasoning on options. Let me say one thing before you stay there and begin. You know, the problem is, I see a parallel with your observation on how to judge new theories. You know? So there are conditions of uncertainty where you don't have the past performance, or even it's inappropriate to judge it on past performance. And in economic decision making, I mean, like a hypothesis on new venture are very similar as very new theories of something that can be done, but who knows? Okay, you don't know the contingency, you don't know the action, you don't know the state of the words, you don't know nothing. How can these guys decide? They themselves do not know that well. So I interviewed a lot of them, and sometimes, and of course, as it used to happen for scientists, they resort to genius, good feeling, intuition, and all sorts of magic. Okay. So the interesting thing is there any rationality in this, okay, or not? Can we distinguish rational bets on hypotheses from foolish ones. So my argument, this is basically more just one core idea in these two papers I have in 2010, that there is something rational to do, which is to leave action and contingencies rationally in the front. So you don't try to foresee the unforeseeable. That's irrational. But what you can do is to shift from the evaluation of action or particular proposition to the evaluation of the causes of this action, which in economics are resources. So when you say, rather than evaluating proposition or theory, you evaluate the scientist, or it's very close to that. And this is a very general move in personal evaluation. If you don't have the performance, and you don't have the future, you have all this uncertainty, you don't evaluate the performance, you evaluate the potential, you evaluate the resource, and even in the evaluation of civil sciences sometimes, you know. We are in a period where we overweight the performance and the output, but actually we can evaluate competence, which might be better in the matter of art. So anyway, this is really what this habit. It's less than some rational approach. So we have a causal hypothesis that good resources or superior resources will generate superior action, and in fact, no matter what the contingency will be. So it's evaluating a potential. I don't know, in economics, the difference is clear, because all this rational decision making means foresight of future state of the world, which is, from the philosophy of science point of view, completely irrational. So the statement, there are statements of this sort. I mean, Tyrol is right. You see, with rational actor, there is no such thing as unforeseeable contingency. Written like that. I mean, this is like collapsing. This is what happened in economics. Uncertainty is rationality. If you don't know only science with rationality, if you admit that you don't know something, you are irrational or not fully rational. That's the problem with the standard. So the argument is that no, if you cannot, it's perfectly legitimate that you say I cannot foresee the state of the world. I cannot even predict clearly which type of product will come out from this affair, like the guys. You know, what I can evaluate in that Roberto Crea is an outstanding chemist, and polyphenols are useful substances. So an investor would say, I invested. What will be the product, the action, the state of the world? Who cares? No matter what they will be, this is a good investment. Based on what? On accounting. Which might turn out to be wrong, of course, but this is not an irrational proceeding, it's a rational proceeding. It's a hypothesis investment. Okay, so that's the end. What did you say? We finish at 6, right?
20 past 6.
20 past 6.
But including the discussion.
No. You still
We started later, a bit later.
Okay, well,
You still
okay,
have
yes.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
So all these arguments came also to tell all the entire story from the study of contracts. It would not bother you with the whole story, but basically it's linked also to how Kant, that sort of rather simple contract, not defining many things, can regulate agreements and action that are very complex and very simple, and the same structure. Okay. So, what are the repertoire? If you want to go on with this repertoire of heuristics, okay, there are some that can be identified. Of course, one could be called robustness, device action that causes good consequences no matter what the contingencies is likely to. It's an heuristic. To go on, with the nest, it's not represented. Nest is not sorry. It's the logic of robust action. Just to give it a name. Okay. Okay, another heuristic, which is not the same thing, is to reverse, to look for, to ask and evaluate what uses or effect a set of resources may have, rather than, so it's starting from mean to go to ends, rather than starting from ends and searching for means. This has been found over and over again in innovation. It also received this name affectation in entrepreneurship literature. Taggart and Croft in your work and maybe the books, they talk about describe the discovery of Java.
Yeah, Java.
It's exactly this logic. The Sun Microsoft put $1 million carte blanche on 2 engineers because they were fed up to work with all these nonsensical things the firm tells them to do. So they were sort of leaving. And they say, okay, we bet on resources. We don't care which either you say ex ante what are the plans, because you don't know what you really produce. And they have produced the C++ language, which became the Java language. And there is also this recent work on exaltation, which is more come from new trends in biology, which also point in the same direction, has been also in fact used for explaining innovation. The part of the rationality of this heuristic is that you leverage on the multifunctionality of resources. So in biology, exaltation means that the plumage of birds may have appeared in a first trial for warning, or in any case has a warning function. But it turns out to have a much more interesting function, which is flight. Okay, so most resources have multiple uses. That's why it's rational to think about the possible uses of resources. It's rational and innovative. It's really discovered. It's one of the heuristics that I use for innovation, or that can be singled out from in the logic of innovation. Okay. In fact, this is also true for the Java language, because C++ ended up in a trouble for a year because it was initially conceived for remote control of television. It never worked. Okay, but as soon as the internet started, a new function was detected. With the same language, more or less the same. Okay. Okay. So what else? This is some. I have 3 studies actually. So one is a new study on the common entrepreneur that in part illustrate in part the reach this stories. Actually, one is on the investor. How do angels decide how the financial actions? Next step will be the real angels. But why not? We had so we had a protocol analysis together with a PhD student of mine of real and financial angel in London, but we simulated the whether they were willing to invest in projects, which were real projects, but we simulated, they did not really consider this part. So we had the angels in Rome, and we presented them some business plan and projects, real, so both were real, but the whole thing was simulated, so it was not a real pitch, okay? We had this protocol, we extracted the various heuristics. We found actually both research in search of uses of equation heuristic and forecasting, scenario reasoning, some prediction, some foresight. We found both theoretical and causal modeling and some experience-based modeling, but always with some explanation. And we found the use of multipurposiveness and also of integrating the different objectives. So we some quantitative, let's see, some quantitative analysis of this. Okay, this is a quantitative content analysis of the qualitative protocols, standard protocol and content analysis. So we sort of counted the instances in which the heuristics appeared. To make a long story brief, we actually found that the fact of employing all these heuristics and to a greater intensity, so more trial, more depth analysis, etc., sustained the quality of decision making. We have a proxy for the error rate reduction, which is we perform the type of performance we wanted to measure. We are not very satisfied. This is the weak point. Because it's a success measure, but by now this is what we have. So we want, I mean, if the process is good, it means that you should have lower type 1 and type 2 errors. So rejecting the good hypotheses and accepting the bad products. So the standard statistic errors. And actually, if we take as a proxy the fact that these projects have been actually financed by real investors and have a good start, which is a rough proxy, but still is a proxy, it happens that actually a much higher percentage among investors scoring above average on the use of those heuristics are correctly 75% rate, while the investors scoring below average, it's like they were picking projects randomly, 50-50, average. 50-50 is just like as if they were deciding randomly. So, this is some evidence, okay? And, okay. Finally, everybody tried to convince me that the next English is better.
Linux is better.
I cannot believe it. And he started again from the beginning. Okay. Then I had another study. So they received no paper, right? No,
The speaker had the paper.
the speaker had
The
the
speaker
other.
said.
No, so actually, before getting this, yes, the second case, this is the protocol from the end of this. Now, this is the case that I reconstructed on the basis of interview with Professor Colorni, Polytechnic of Milan, engineer, decision-maker, designer, and in any case responsible for a huge project for Regione Lombardia. Can you see anything? Okay, more or less. For the reducing traffic in Milan. Wow. Or traffic negative consequences. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Also wrong, I guess. Yeah.
More
And okay, of course, it's not a problem in which you can find an optimal solution. That's obvious. It's not a problem where we want the behavioral heuristic applied. They are already applied with the results that we have. So I said, okay, what's the likelihood you apply? Okay, they gather, well, some are social linguistics, like disagreement, gathering people, having variety, all the things that we know in behavioral. If there is one thing that we understood since a long time, is that conflict and disagreement pays in terms of political solution. That all stuff in the position behavior since the 50s or 60s. And so 40 engineers in the first phase, 40 designers in the second phase, and 40 or something stakeholders, representatives of different interests in the third phase. Beforehand, huge search of literature on pollution, fire, transportation, experience in other towns, and everything. Okay, so then what they did is to unpack the type of solution. Well, they focus on this sub-problem of car sharing. That has been negotiated with the Regione Lombardia to start. Okay, reduce all the pollution, etc., focusing on the use of car, and possibly the common car. Okay, that's one possibility. So they break down the car sharing experience in attributes. So that's one possible heuristic, to unpack an alternative in a number of functional attributes. That's close to the former using in interpreting. Reason and function. So you don't have alternative, you don't have action, you have attributes or functions. And then they came with 45 attributes of what a car can be. Why do we use car? Okay. So it range from status symbol to active transportation to kids to nights to everything. Okay. And one possible approach for generating new solution was recombining the aspect to the 45 combination, if possible. So that's the case of Simonian computation complexity exceeding. So they have an hypothesis-driven approach, and they try to recombine this function and the characteristic of the car so that to improve the performance dimension, like energy saving, pollution, reduce number of trade, etc. And in this way, so try to improve the two dimensions at a time. So invent a solution that can reduce the number of movements and save some men. Okay, so there was an exercise that economists call a Pareto improvement with respect to two independent parameters. That's applied to Okay. In this way, they came to a couple of interesting solutions, which has been, one of them has been the so-called condo sharing. So the cars and the condominium, because in Milan we do have, and perhaps also in Rome, the generic car deposit. They don't work at station, you know, like the bike deposit. The bike deposit works, but not the car. So the car seems to need a more personalized, community-based solution, based on, in fact, on either the condominium, common cars, or firm. So, for example, all the firms and vehicle of the commercial enterprises given to the employee after the hour, when they are idle during the night, the evening. You know, they were sitting there doing nothing. So all these kind of, these are great improvements in terms of energy, saving, pollution reduction, utility increase, and so on. So this is just for giving some illustration of what I mean with this heuristics, which otherwise remain somewhat obscure. So, the third shift has to do with the logic of choice. We have the logic of search or research, the logic of alternative generation, and then we have the logic of choice, mainly the heuristics and all this population. So we're stuck with the either maximizing or satisfying. Either go to the finding the upper bound or setting a lower bound. Okay, the interesting stuff is in the middle, and it's the logic of improvement, correct improvement, popular improvement, in the sense that, let's call it popular improvement, knowledge improvement, not in popular in the strict sense. But if we are improving, not really maximizing, because you never know where the maximum is, but improving the function, or improving the reliability and validity of the knowledge in the position, in the decision. So if you structure the car like that, if you use a battery, you will have this outcome. And if you improve the validity and the quality of all these three hypotheses accepted in the decision making, let's say you have property. Everybody knows what the Pareto improvement is. Of course, a final and further problem, and we would need in most economic decision making heuristic for fairness and distribution. There's a lot from negotiation, behavior, etc., all that. So we need heuristic for fair division. So who are gaining, who are losing, what is the fair division of the car solution, or whatever solution. Almost any economic action have this distribution of the car. Some are gaining more and some are gaining less. Okay. So, okay, we don't. The pilots. I was perhaps 5 minutes on the pilots. Okay, the pilots are, okay, I don't present the case, I just tell you briefly what the case was. It's not, but the pilots are interesting because they don't have time. So all these fractional heuristics are very nice, but one may say, okay, it may take a year to get out of this procedure, to apply this procedure. Our shortcuts from the behavior repertoire at least are fast. That's why they're there, because you trade off accuracy and effort. You reduce effort and you reduce accuracy and you're happy. Okay, the pilots are interesting, but also in prompt intervention, civil protection, healthcare. You don't want to reduce accuracy at all. Okay, it's not right. It's not rational. So can those rational heuristics be applied fast? Actually, I didn't have the thought. I expected more differences, but analyzing the cases, the cognitive process, the training of these pilots, even in the extreme conditions, for military operation, they really have to be fast. The interesting thing is that the qualitative differences are not so impressive. So we found really mostly the same heuristics. So basically what they do, they try to do ex ante all what they can, but not predicting what will happen, which is impossible, but constructing a number of models, connecting problems and solutions, causally based. And they make it have like this to the pilot of knowing the causal texture of what they are doing. So not blindly apply solution. So like in our laundry machine, right? If the light goes up, then do that. No, they should understand the causal structure of the airplane, the causal structure of the reason behind all the procedure they apply. For being able to break the procedure when necessary, for example, the case that is described in the paper was an airplane landed like 2 days ago. Landed with problem in the gear. Okay. 2 days ago, the gear were not functioning, and they opted for landing without the gear. Okay. Because the terrain was permitting that. In the case described in the paper, there was a cargo. They fixed the gear in an inventive, strange way, actually more like a sailman, than a pilot with a chain, okay? And they managed to land. By using the iPhone, which is forbidden on the flight, for getting prompt, reliable information, they consulted at least 10 agencies to complete the constructor of the airplane, the tower of control, and 3 officers, and in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, they devised a new solution. Okay, so the procedure, this is tentative, but the heuristics are not so different. And they can be applied in 15 minutes, but if we look at the logic of the problem solving leading to save from accidents, so far I've not found any strange logic. It's the same logic, but it's just supported so much. Supported by prior analysis and by external source of information so that they can act in 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So far, there is also some research in economics that's showing that having more alternatives simultaneously in mind and processing more information actually can be faster than acting experientially, sequentially, in the behavioral mode and never getting out from without, go back and forth without understanding what's the best thing and to do and in the middle with the occasional opportunity to come. So, okay, so I stop here.